Hey guys, Rajo here with Watch This Instead for October 22nd, 2010. Last night at midnight, I saw Paranormal Activity 2, which I'd been dreading to see all week because essentially I'm a giant baby with an overactive imagination that's highly prone to suggestion. For me, horror movies featuring some dude in a mask slashing his way through a group of Hollywood teenagers that in no way represent any real people anywhere always seem like they're trying too hard and never actually produce any goosebumpy, spine-tingly scares. But something like the Paranormal Activity franchise that relies heavily on suspense and eerie atmosphere and the conceit that the footage is real and the events that you see on screen actually happen will keep me up at night for weeks and weeks. Just ask my wife. How's the sequel? In short, it's slightly less scary than the first one, but only slightly, and I chalk that up to two things. One, I was more prepared this time around, and two, there were at least twice as many characters, which lessens the sort of feeling of lonesome dread that the first film provided. If you're unaware, the original film features a couple, Katie and Mika, that are terrorized in their suburban home by some sort of unseen demonic force over the period of a few weeks. What the sequel does really well story-wise is that it wraps itself around the original as more of a companion piece as opposed to straight-up sequel. This time, it's Katie's sister's family that are the target of the unseen demonic force, and there's a toddler thrown into the mix, which just adds a whole new layer of creepiness. More of Katie and her sister's family history are explored, and Katie herself appears in the film a few times, which is just unsettling. Overall, the performances in this one were much stronger and felt way more natural all around. Another thing that the new film does really well is that it introduces security cameras with 5 fixed vantage points of the house as the main source of the found footage. You know how when you're looking at security camera videos and the composition is never exactly perfect, the subject is down in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen and the rest of the frame is completely empty? Well, that does nothing but heighten the tension of this already super tense film. During the long drawn-out shots of a lone family member investigating the source of a loud thump, I found myself constantly scanning the rest of the screen, frantically trying to anticipate whether or not the basement door was going to fly open and something was going to come flying out of it. And the fact that such a thing rarely happens makes when it does happen all the more freaky. In terms of pacing, they've struck a near perfect balance of suspense versus payoff that makes for an absolutely chilling viewing experience. All I can say is I'm glad I saw it in a theater full of people who were equally as on edge as I was. But despite this glowing review and the countless others you're going to find all over the internet, there is going to be a bunch of horror fans, hardcore horror fans, that just don't buy into the slow burn, minimalist, mock-umentary atmospheric horror that you see in this film. They don't think that doors slamming of their own accord are scary, and they consider a film boring if someone isn't hacked to death every 10 minutes. And that's okay, I guess, but it certainly leaves me hard-pressed to find something to suggest to them to watch instead. So how about you horror fans out there that I'm talking about? How about you just dig into your DVD collection, find your favorite horror movie that you haven't seen in a while, and just watch that this weekend? Maybe that's Halloween, maybe that's Friday the 13th, who knows? And if you're bored of all those that you've seen a million times, maybe you haven't seen Martyrs, which we saw at Midnight Madness a few years ago, or even Inside, which we also saw at Midnight Madness a few years ago. Neither of these films feature a door that slams on its own, and both of these films are incredibly suspenseful and gory to boot. Martyrs in particular has left a pretty deep scar on my brain that will probably never heal. It transcends the very definition of horror into something else entirely. And that something isn't something that I'm too keen to revisit, I'll tell you that much. And if those don't do it for you either, then Jesus Christ, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe watching a horror movie this weekend just isn't in the cards. Maybe you should go watch some Warner Brothers cartoons or Voltron. But if you're actually interested in a unique theater-going experience that you don't get every weekend, you should join an audience full of nervously laughing horror freaks that are actually scared of the very idea of ghosts and demons, and watch Paranormal Activity 2.